Annette at needlepointers.com, and today I would like to show you how to make this gorgeous folded star potholder. What you need to make the folded star potholder is 3 fabrics. Fabric A is a solid. Fabric B is a medium or dark print. Fabric C is a light print or solid. You need batting, Insulbrite, rotary cutter, ruler and mat, fabric marker, and basic sewing supplies such as a sewing machine, thread, scissor, ironing board, and pins. From fabric A, which is the solid, cut a 9-inch square. This is the backing for the placement of the fabric triangles. With an iron, crease the fabric by folding it into a triangle and press. Fold it into a smaller triangle and press. Unfold your fabric and now fold it in half and then in half again to make quarters. Press along the fold. With a fabric marker and ruler, using the creases as a guide, you're going to mark your fabric along the creases diagonally and also horizontally and vertically. When finished marking, set this piece aside while you cut the fabric for the triangles. The next step is to cut the fabric for the triangles. All the fabric will be cut 4.5 inches by 3.5 inches. You will need, out of fabric A, which is the solid, 4 pieces. From fabric B, which is the medium or dark print, you need 16 pieces, and from fabric C, which is a light print or solid, you will need 8 pieces. Now it's time to prep all the triangles for the star. Take the fabric and fold it in half and press. This should measure 4.5 inches by 1 3/4. Now fold it over again in half and finger press it. To make a crease. Take the one corner that is folded and bring it down to the crease and press. Take the other corner, the folded end, and bring it down and press. Repeat this process for all the 4.5-inch by 3.5-inch rectangle pieces. To start the first round of the Folded Star Potholder, we're going to be using the 4 solid pieces, which was fabric A. Using the lines on your foundation piece, position the triangle so the point is towards the center, and line up the angled sides of the triangle with the diagonal lines and the center of the triangle with either the vertical or horizontal line. Then pin it in place. Repeat this process with the other 3 triangle pieces. After you have them all pinned, we're going to sew around the outside of the triangles. We're going to sew fairly close to the edge. If you have a needle down feature, that makes it easy to do. Okay, I'm going to continue to sew around and then I'll show you what you have to do next. I've finished stitching all the way around. Now for each round, you are going to stitch down all the points in the triangle. And how you do that is you have your needle and you go down between the 2 folds. You don't have to do the whole thing. You can start about halfway. Then you stitch backwards a few stitches, and then you start to stitch forward. When you get to the point, you want to stitch backwards to tack it. Then you can cut your thread and go on to the next triangle. Again, you don't have to start all the way at the top. You can do it in the middle. Sometimes you might have to just pull this apart a little bit so that you make sure that your needle is between the folds, and then start stitching. Round 2 requires 8 triangles of fabric B. The first thing you're going to do is you're going to pin 4 triangles around like this. And then you're going to pin them, overlapping them like this. Okay, so to do that, let's start with the first triangle. And you want it to be the point of the new triangle, or the fabric B, is to be a 1/2 inch away from the center folded point of fabric A's triangle. So you want it a 1/2 inch from the center line here, and you want to center it then, or align it with the vertical or horizontal line. and pin them in place. Okay, let me show you again. Okay, so now we're going to put one on top of this triangle, and it's going to be a 1/2 inch from the center, and you're going to line it up with the line, the center of the triangle with that line, and pin. As I said, first go around and put them all over the top of the previous ones, and then overlap them, and you'll do the same thing. Measure from the center and place the triangle and align it with the vertical lines. Then I'm going to complete doing mine, and I'll show you what it looks like. All the triangles for row 2 are pinned on, and we're going to do the same thing as we did in round 1. We're going to sew around the outside, and then we're going to sew down each of the points. Okay, I finished sewing around and tacking each of the points of the triangle. And for round 3, you're going to use the 8 triangles of fabric C. Again, you're going to pin them. First, you're going to pin them in opposite directions like this on the vertical and horizontal lines. And then they're going to be pinned and sewn down on well, you're going to pin everything first, and then you're going to sew around it and tack down the points. This time, when you're going to do it, you're going to measure from the point of the round 2 triangle and place it and pin. Okay, so then we're going to do the one up here. And again, I'm going to turn it so it's easier for me to do. I'm going to measure from the point of the last row of triangles a 1/2 inch, and of course I'm lining also up the line in the middle of the triangle with the line on the foundation piece. And you're going to do that all the way around, and then again you're going to sew around the outside and tack down each of the triangle points. Round 3 is finished. For round 4, we're going to use the remaining 8 pieces of the medium or dark fabrics, and we're going to do the same thing. We're going to attach it on the horizontal and vertical lines first, then the diagonal lines, and we're going to sew around it. But this time, when you sew around it, make sure you only use a scant 1/4 inch seam allowance. A scant 1/4 inch seam allowance is just slightly smaller than a 1/4 inch. And the reason you're doing that is because you will be sewing on some borders later on at a 1/4 inch, and you don't want this stitching to show. 4 rounds are finished. Now we are going to attach some fabric to the 4 corners. From fabric A, cut 4 3.5 inch squares. Then fold it in half, and what you're going to do is you're going to place it along one of the corners. Using your ruler, you want to be a 1/2 inch from the edge. Place the folded triangle up against that. Now the fabric is a little longer, but I'm doing that just to make sure that it's going to cover the whole thing. Then open it up and pin it in a few places. Now what you're going to do is you're going to sew right along that crease line. So I'm going to go over to the sewing machine and I'm going to sew along it, and then I'll come back and show you what you do next. Okay, I stitched right in the crease. I'm going to remove the 2 pins, and then what you're going to do is you're going to be folding it over and pressing it. Now do that for the other 3 corners, the exact same thing. Okay, the corners are added and pressed. Now we need to square up your pot holder. And what you're going to do is you're going to line your ruler up with this edge and this edge, and then turn it and line it up with the other 2 edges. So I'm going to take my square ruler and I'm going to line it up with those 2 edges like I said. And you're going to have to press down fairly hard because of the all the material that's there. And then you're going to square it up, and I'm going to square it across the top. Okay, and then you're going to turn it and do the same thing on the other side. And then do the same thing on the other 2 sides. You might want to line this up to square it up with the lines on your ruler, not on the sides over here, and get it close there. And remove it. Okay. This is what it looks like so far. The next step is to add the borders to the pot holder. Cut one 11-inch square of batting and one 11-inch square of Insulbrite. Place the Insulbrite on your work surface with the shiny side down. Place the batting on top and place your folded star in the middle. To add the border, I can't give you the exact measurement because it depends on how closely you were a 1/2 inch away from the points when you were making it. So what you need to do is you need to measure it and then cut 2 pieces 1.5 inches wide by that measurement. These 2 pieces will be sewn to the side of the pot holder using a 1/4 inch seam allowance. After the sides have been sewn on, press them, then measure the top and the bottom and take an average, and then cut 2 pieces 1.5 inches by that measurement for the top and the bottom of the pot holder. Again, we're going to be sewing these on using a 1/4 inch seam allowance. The borders have been added and pressed. The next step, we're going to zigzag around the entire star block to hold the 3 layers together, the top, the batting, and the insulbrate. This will make it easier when adding the backing. After it's been zigzagged, it's time to trim away the excess fabric, batting, and insulbrate. Use your rotary cutter and ruler and trim, trying not to trim into the zigzag stitch. I'm going to be using my quilter's slide lock because when you press down, this will hold multiple layers of fabric together, and it won't allow the fabric to shift. Trim all 4 sides. It's all trimmed. If you want a hanger for your pot holder, this is the time to add it. What you need is a piece of fabric that is 1.5 inches by 3.5 inches. And what I did was I folded it in half first and made a crease. Then I opened it up and I folded the 2 raw edges in towards the crease. I then folded it again in half, and then I pressed it. Then I stitched along the folded edge, this edge, and then I attached it up to one of the corners and I just stitched it in place. And what you want it to do is make sure that you place it so that the hanger is facing towards the center of the pot holder. When you turn the pot holder right side out, it will be on the outside and it will be facing this way. For the backing, you want the piece to be larger right now than your pot holder. I cut mine 11 inches square. What you're going to do then is to place the 2 pieces together with right sides together and sew around the outside using 1/4 inch seam allowance, but on one of the sides leave a 5-inch opening so that you can turn the pot holder right side out. After sewing all the way around, trim the excess fabric. And then turn it right side out through the opening. Now you may be wondering, you may think to yourself, boy, that's a really wide opening that you're using. But the first pot holder I made, I really had a hard time getting it through the opening because it was smaller. So I think that a 5-inch will be the perfect size. Also, a lot of people tell you to trim the corners. I'm not trimming my corners. What's going to happen is the corners are going to be slightly rounded, and I like them that way. So, as you can see, I'm turning it right side out, and it's much easier this time than it is the first pot holder that I did. And I guess I forgot to tell you that when you're stitching all the way around and at the opening, where the opening is, make sure that you back stitch there. Now, once you do get it completely out, I'm almost there. Let's finish it up. You do want to push out the corners, but as I said, they're going to be slightly rounded, and I like it that way. And you can use a tool to poke out the corners somewhat, but as you see, I'm rounding them, and that's the way I like it. Okay, let me finish up turning it, and then what you're going to do is press it nice and flat, and when you press it, you're going to turn in the opening 1/4 of an inch, lining it up with the seam allowances, and I'll show you then what it looks like. Okay, the last step is to hand stitch the opening closed. I have it pinned up here, and what I'm going to be using is a ladder stitch to stitch it closed. The potholder is finished. This pattern is perfect for using up scraps in your fabric stash or making theme potholders for friends and family as gifts. They look great in your kitchen and protect your hands, along with kitchen and dining surfaces from heat damage. Here is another one that I made using a different color combination. I hope you enjoyed learning how to make the Folded Star Potholder. Please like and share this video with family and friends. If you're not a subscriber, subscribe to our channel so you don't miss future videos. Help us by sharing our videos on Facebook, Twitter, and Pinterest. Visit our website, needlepointers.com, for lots of free sewing and quilting projects and tutorials. While you are there, sign up for our weekly newsletter so you don't miss upcoming projects.